Tattoo artists. What was your worst mistake and how did the client react? Got a small tattoo on my foot. As he was making a line I heard him say whoops. I now have a stray line that's jutting off away from the rest of the tat. Fortunately over time it has faded. But it's such a shitty tattoo. The whole thing is just the worst. It was only $60 so I didn't say anything. And just told myself one day I'd get it covered up by something better. Edit to add, the main reason I didn't complain is because the tattoo artist was, and still is, my best friend's neighbor. I once tattooed a skull with a pocket watch inside of the mouth. The day of the appointment, the customer changed the position of the tattoo to the other arm. So I just flipped the design, printed it, stenciled it, and started tattooing. When I started shading I realized that the watch also inverted when I inverted the design. And didn't take into account the direction of the numbers on the clock. They were Roman numerals and the customer hasn't realized anything to this day. And I'll see him again in a few weeks for another design. Don't plan on mentioning ever. Apprentice here. Nothing major but bad karma on one tattoo from the get-go that absolutely floored my confidence for a bit. Only recently did my first ever small tattoo on a client. Had to do a small range of flash ideas that I felt comfortable with. Had my mentor, who judging by some other stories. I'm very lucky to have. He's a sound dude, discuss with me beforehand my needle choices. Placement technique. Usual bits and was ready to go. Every felt ready. Midway through. My machine goes. It's brand new. My only one. Managed to sort it without much fuss. In doing so, in my panic put the wrong needle size in the machine when it came to replacing it with a fresh one. Botched a line when I realize almost immediately the size difference. Change again. Nerves are shot. Back at it. Brand new foot pedal breaks. Replace it with an old one from my mentor. It breaks too. Power pack dies. That was brand new too. Panic. Spill my ink. Practically had a meltdown in my brain about what has happened. Carried on with another artist's equipment. Apologizing as calmly as I can to my client. Mentor calmed my nerves and I ended up pulling it out the bag and doing a job I was happy with somehow, but most importantly, the client loved it. Anyway. Not a crazy bad story, but as an apprentice who's also a fairly confident dude, I have never felt so absolutely floored in my life. Tattooing someone is monumentally stressful when all doesn't go to plan. I can't wait to do more and progress. But fuck me, what a time for shit to happen. My mentor helped me sort all my gear afterward and was super cool. Sat with me and said something like, well, of all the times and all the things that could have gone wrong, that was the absolutely perfect one for them. Nerve-wracking stuff. My husband works at a tattoo shop. One of our friends from the gym we go to lost their child. Since they knew us, they went to the shop my husband works at as the piercer. The tattoo artist drew it up and they approved it. Well, he accidentally invented the death date to 02 instead of 20. They only realized it after the first tattoo was done on the wife. The husband went ahead and got the wrong date as well. The tattoo shop paid for laser removal and correction. The clients were very cool about it, but the artist was a wreck. If it weren't a child's memorial tattoo, I don't think he would have been as upset. It's all been fixed at this point. I was a receptionist at a tattoo shop. One of the artists misspelled neighborhood on this guy's neck. He spelled it neighborhood, leaving out the first H. Neighborhood was the guy's nickname. It was a pretty large, elaborate tattoo, so there was no fixing it. I don't think I have ever cringed so hard in my life. The guy was surprisingly really cool about it. He did see the drawing and approved it before it was tattooed on. He ended up making the artist tattoo H on his palm, so if anyone gave him shit about the misspelling he could smack that person with the missing H. This will be buried, but it's worth a shot. I work at a tattoo shop with a few artists. One of our artists fucked up tremendously on a face tattoo. She did the stencil beforehand and showed him. After his approval, she started above his brow. He wanted cursed, but he left the shop with cuss red tattooed on his forehead. He was pissed, of course. Never saw him again. I've been fairly lucky and able to fix or cover everything I've done. It's all little stuff like always only has one L, getting a date mixed up on translation while going through various fonts. Or the dreaded starting coloring the wrong side of a nautical star. Shit still gives me chills, and I've developed a bit of OCD asking and double checking all the things. I've got 16 years in this game. And I am only human. The absolute worst I've witnessed. A guy did a huge flowy script on a girl's thigh. Supposed to be born too loose. Actually said born too loose. The only thing I could do was a massive cover-up. I'm not an artist, but my best friend got her first tattoo, and it was a recreation of a painting done by her dead father. She realized after it was done that the signature was the totally wrong name, and she forever has a completely random name tattooed on her back. I watched my boss turn a stylized Tierney, mistress's name, into Diane, wife's name, once. I'd never believe it if I didn't see it with my eyes. My wife is on month 4 of antibiotics, that the bacteria turned out to be resistant to, because the artist used tainted ink. Shit you not. She's been on 5 different antibiotics. The type of bacteria develops super show, the fast type take over a month to develop, and they just figured out what it is. The bacteria ended up being related to tuberculosis. She's gonna end up needing a PICC line for her 4 antibiotic. When I was but a wee baby piercer, I worked at the biggest shop in my city, which had 14 artists and 2 piercers. It was the peak of the tramp stamp trend. I'm still so sad that was the nickname. Ass antlers was so much better, so when a super tiny 18-year-old black woman came in and wanted her name on her lower back with a flower, it was just normal. An older white male tattoo artist took her to pick a font. It took a minute, even though back then everyone went with Edwardian, but they came out. I had her do paperwork and he got the drawing finished. She okayed the design. She okayed the stencil. She sat for the tattoo. Loved it. Tipped him and left. 2 hours later she called back sobbing, saying we ruined her life. The counter girl told her to come in and we would fix whatever was wrong. Tattoo comes back with her 2 gigantic, angry AF friends who are ready to freak out. We finally see the tattoo. Her name was Whitney. The N got left out in the font process. So huge across her lower back it said Whitey. It was covered for free and with many apologies with 3 giant purple roses. The tattoo artist was so fucked up over that he didn't come in for a week. It was an honest mistake. But it was the worst fucking spelling error I've seen. Tattoo artist here. Best case I ever saw. A guy came into our shop asking about a cover-up. The tattoo wasn't done at our place. He had what we call a belly rocker. One of those lettering tattoos that arcs over the belly. Think Tommy Lee's Mayhem tattoo. Usually gothic font. Gangsta type piece. He had beautifully executed. Bold. Black. Old English letters across his belly that were supposed to read. Scarred for life. Whoever did the tattoo, as well as the tattooed guy, had forgotten one of the letters. An R. This guy came in with scared for life on his belly. We showed him some cover-up options. Including full torso. Japanese-style bodysuit stuff. Someone may have joked about doing the old proofreading trick of just putting a little red arrow and adding the missing letter. I don't know who did the thing, but never saw him again after giving cost estimates for the giant cover-up. 15 or so years ago. We still joke about this one. This happened back in 2012 when I was really new at this. I was tattooing a good friend of mine. He wanted a clock tattoo, my first one ever, with Roman numerals, with a mask next to it. Once the drawing was done, we realized that the mask was not fitting properly on the leg, due to other tattoos he had. So I went to the printer and flipped the design, mirrored. Put it on the leg and it was more than perfect. I start the tattoo. We chat and then I'm done. He gets up and checks in the mirror to see the final result, and he realized that the clock had the Roman numerals flipped, 3 was at 9. We both froze. Laughed it up and went back on the table to fix it. At the end, it turned out to be not as bad as I thought it would be. My only spelling mistake ever was in Italian. Girl wants a phrase in Italian. She writes it down no less than 5x on a paper. I tell her to make sure it is correct. I don't speak Italian. She insists it is correct. I draw up some nice script. Tattoo it with no issues. Bandage. Pay, and she leaves. She comes back in hysterical and tells me I spelled it wrong. I hadn't thrown out the paper. I spelled it exactly how she spelled it. I asked what she wanted to do. And she decided no one I know speaks Italian. That was about 15 years ago. I often wonder if she ended up getting it covered up. Not my customer. But the same shop. We didn't take a deposit on a dick tattoo. Guy walked in wanting a sucker/lollipop tattooed on his junk. Anyways, when the tattoo was over he refused to pay and the guy who did it was left scared for life, as he initially said he would never tattoo another dude's genitals, so worst thing ever was learning not taking deposits. I've been tattooing people for a while now. This guy wanted to tattoo his dad on his upper arm. After a couple hours I was on the mustache. It was a goatee. I started around 3 or 4 o'clock. And when I was done I couldn't help but see this horrible mistake. I made a Hitler stache and a goatee. As I now call a hati. I gave him $75 off and never saw him again. Misspelled the name Jamie. Jamie. I asked the client for the spelling and showed the client the laid out script before it was applied. So not my fault. The client was very disgusted with himself for not knowing how to spell the name of the woman he loved enough to show it on his skin for life. I felt sorry for the guy, so I offered him a cover-up at an incredible discount as well as the name reapplied spelled correctly. Unfortunately he never took me up on that offer. I had a client email me asking for a 4-letter acronym. I don't do freehand script, so I put the letters into a font generator and sent him back some options. He picked the one he liked best and we set an appointment date. On the day of his session, I showed him the acronym again and we chose a size. I placed the stencil and he approved it and I got started. Midway through the tattoo I asked him what the letters stood for and he told me. My heart stopped. The letters were in the wrong order. The middle two were swapped. I ran to the shop computer to check my email and sure enough, in his original email he'd sent me, they'd been correct. I had typed them into the font generator wrong. But to be fair, he had seen them several times since then and didn't notice my mistake. I spent the rest of the session covering them up with another design he'd had as a backup tattoo idea and I didn't charge him. But it was a good learning experience for me to always ask what initials/acronyms stand for ahead of time to make sure I get them in the right order. Edit, thank you for all the awards and upvotes. It makes me feel slightly less inclined to puke with embarrassment every time I think about that day. Also, I originally wrote initials but I think what I meant was acronym, so I went through and corrected my comment and also clarified which letters I mixed up. Thanks for watching.